Hello and welcome to the Contractor Growth Show. My name is Mark. I'm your host. And today I'm speaking with Dan Train at DT Dustless Blasting in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Dan, thanks so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear, just to start, kind of specifically what services you offer for your customers over at Cedar Rapids.
I do mobile sandblasting and I offer services, whether that's auto restoration, whether that's patio restoration, large construction equipment, pools, log cabins, and everything else in between. If it has rust or paint on it, I can pretty much remove it.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. And so that's mobile, huh?
Yes.
You don't do that necessarily at a shop or whatever?
No, I think that's why I'm in such high demand, is the fact that I come to the customer's house, their vehicle never leaves their site, or the fact that, they have a pool that they need sandblasted and stuff, and that I can show up on the site. Same thing with like job sites and so on. Monday, I got to go down to the University of Iowa and do some steps down there and can reach, where they need it done and stuff like that. So works great on both sides, I guess you could say. Lower overhead.
Okay. And you've got an interesting process, correct? I mean, the way that you kind of the product that you use is more eco-friendly. And
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So I use like a 4080 glass bead media, and it doesn't have any of the cancer causing silica byproduct in it. It's pretty eco-friendly and safe on the lungs. I mean, it's as safe as coffee. I'm pretty conscious about my health and my environment and things like that. So I try to use stuff that's friendly to everyone around me.
Okay, amazing. And I mean, I've been a part of some sandblasting projects. They were always kind of completely like contained.
Correct.
Right. And so is that how this works here, or is that no longer needed because of the product that you're using?
I would say it's no longer needed. And the fact that I have one particular unit where I can run water through the media to keep the dust down. And then I also have another pot where I can just do dry blasting. And yeah, most of the media stays within 6 feet of the project. So it's just a matter of sweeping it up and disposing of it.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. So is this a huge service, Dan? I mean, it seems so incredibly valuable. I mean, I don't hear a ton about it, and especially like the mobile quality here. I mean, is this kind of a unique market here, or is it just kind of a great business that exists out in the marketplace? I've just never really heard of it much.
Yeah, so I was researching this back in 2011, 2012, and I picked up on it on some of the car shows that were on Saturday mornings. And so it was kind of a franchise thing. And it took me 2 years of discernment to actually pull the trigger and buy the equipment. And I was the second guy in Iowa to start this way back then. And since I got in so early, I kind of had the market of pretty much Eastern Iowa now. I've had a few other people try to do the same thing as I do. Some have lasted, some have not. More have gone out of business, you could say, than have lasted, because it does take, a lot of hard work and advertising and things like that to get off the ground. And it's, it's not something that's you could just dive right in and, put $100,000 down on equipment and stuff like that, and insurance and so on. So, but I started slowly out of my garage and worked my full-time job and kind of did this on the side. And then by 2020, it just, I decided to go all in, and I've been doing it full-time ever since.
Yeah, that's amazing. Man, I love that. Love that you created your own niche there and then served it. I mean, just what a great story. One time I had built a house and we had bought a used wood stove that was really perfect for this space. I mean, it was a small space and it's a small wood stove, but the thing was a complete mess. It was just a total wreck, and it was all rusted out, and I couldn't even hardly imagine using it again. I mean, we had bought it used and it had been sitting around a garage for 10 years, whatever. And a friend of mine said, well, we should sandblast that. I said, well, how does that work? I don't know anything about that. And so we took the stove over to where he had this industrial sandblaster. And man, in a matter of seconds, to turn that thing into a rusted old piece of junk to this absolutely gorgeous stove. We found this like relief in the side of it that we didn't even know was there. Have you had some stories of? I'm sure you had tons. I'd love to hear a story or two where your work with coming in with sandblasting kind of made some kind of fundamental difference in the use of someone's old machinery, or were able to restore something beautiful that was important in somebody's life. Got any stories like that?
Yeah, I've done quite a few of, I guess you could say, heirlooms when it comes to tractors, where their great grandpa had a tractor and been passed down in the family, and now it's retired, but yet, the uncle and the grandson want to restore it. I've done a few of those. I've done things for the 4-H kids just for free to do that sort of work. The best one off the top of my head was, I had a kid, what was it, a year ago or 2 years ago, did a tractor for him, and I did it in July, and the Iowa State Fair was in August. He had 6 weeks to put this whole tractor back together. And he was an FFA, and I sandblasted the whole thing. And I was kind of kidding him. I was like, "Well, we're going to win a blue ribbon." And he's like, "Forget the blue ribbon. We're going for the purple." And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Grand champion, baby." And I was like, when I looked around, I was like, "Oh my gosh, how's this kid going to get this whole tractor back together?" And by golly, if he did not get that whole thing back together, running, painted, to the Iowa State Fair, filling out the paperwork the night before with his mom at a restaurant to get the thing entered in. I was invited up there for that one, and the judges spent an hour and a half on his tractor. I mean, and he went up against some great tractors, and he won. I was
No kidding.
so blown away that I had a tractor at the Iowa State Fair that run grand champion.
Wow. That is so great.
So that's kind of cool. Then I also had a job where this guy says, who won this bathtub? And I was like, I have no idea. He's like, he's extremely famous. I said, get out of here. I said, who? He said, Johnny Carson. When he was a little
No
baby,
kidding.
his mom used to bathe him in this tub, and they
What?
bought the house, and they took they couldn't save the house. They wanted to save the house, put it on a historical thing, but it was too far gone. So they pulled all the tubs and the sinks and everything out. And so I refinished them, or sandblasted them for him. And I got a photo of me sitting in Johnny Carson's tub.
That
So
is so great. Oh
yeah,
man.
from that to $500,000 cars that have been at SEMA. I have a customer down in Memphis, Missouri, that has me come down and do his $500,000 builds, and he enters those into SEMA. So I had a car in SEMA, which is one of the biggest car shows in the world, in Vegas in November. It usually runs the first week in November, and was invited there for he built the ultimate Mustang, I guess you could say. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, I've kind of been all over different things, from pools to SEMA to winning the Iowa State Fair Grand Champion tractor to just heirlooms, benches, it just runs the gamut.
Man, that is amazing. Very cool, Dan. What is the territory around Cedar Rapids that you go? Seems like
Yeah,
maybe
so
quite a ways.
I go as far west as Des Moines. I go as far north as like Cedar Falls and north to Waverly. I go clear to the Illinois. I go into Illinois, clear to Dubuque, down to Davenport, and then clear down to the southern border of Missouri to Memphis, Missouri, and so on. So I would say I'm like within a 2.5 hour to 3 hour radius is kind of where I service things. Once you get past 3.5 hours, depending on the job, it gets expensive on the customer side because of the travel and the length of time and stuff like that. So, but with my area that I cover, I stay pretty busy.
Do you have some folks on your team?
Nope, I'm owner operator.
Okay.
It's just me. Keeps the overhead down and stuff. I'd like to get my son in on it, but he has yet to come out and give it a try yet. But I'd love to
Sure.
bring him in on it.
Sure. And Dan, any tips on just how to grow a business like this? Sounds like when you were kind of breaking into it, there wasn't really a roadmap for you. There was no other, nobody else doing this.
Yep.
And, you spent some money on advertising, put some work into it. What are a couple of things that works best? I mean, any tips on growing a business kind of in that general fashion?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I've been to college. I got every degree. I even have a PhD, which my dad just doesn't understand why I got a PhD and I'm out here sandblasting. But I taught for 21 years, so I kind of just retired away from that. But yeah, I never took a business class. I didn't know how to start a business, and it was just kind of hard knocks, I guess you could say. And I grew up with a really good work ethic on the farm. And yes, I made a ton of mistakes the first 3 years trying to grow this thing. And that's just kind of where you learn and you adapt and you study different business models. You get on the internet, you go to YouTube videos and stuff like that. And back when I was starting, there wasn't much YouTube, podcast, fanfare, TikTok, all that stuff wasn't around in 2012. So I really just had to learn it organically. And I would say, as far as guys that are starting out, the advertising is the biggest thing, is getting word of mouth out. I used to have my kids throw business cards at every car show imaginable on the weekends. They hate car shows now to this day. And so I used to do it just, I just would just beat the bricks and try to, postcards, the whole 9 yards. I did it the old school way, and I was working harder and not smarter. And now I'm working smarter, not harder. And I got a great company that does my website, and a guy by the name of Andrew that takes care of all that stuff. Also, too, having a good CPA to do all your book work. That's key. Insurance. Probably the biggest stumbling block you get in sandblasting is the insurance side of it, because they don't know how to designate you. So insurance is pricey when you do sandblasting. That's probably your biggest expense next to your equipment, is just getting the yearly insurance, because I carry $1 million policy. So I can do work for UPS and University of Iowa and FedEx and, all these big companies that require that.
Sure. Okay. Great. Well, fantastic, Dan. Looks like an amazing business. I can tell you're passionate about it. And, the limited experience I've had with being around sandblasting, it's been like wonderful, kind of glorious what those machines can do. If folks are in the Cedar Rapids area, or 2 or 3 hours surrounding, looking for a great sandblasting company to work with, it's completely restore all kinds of different tools, decks, things that are worn out around the house, important industrial equipment. What are some best ways to get in touch with you?
Yes, I have a website. It's dtdustlessblasting.com. It has all the contact information there. I've been in business since 2012, so I have probably over 3,000 hours hanging on that hose. So I think I know what I'm doing after, doing this for 12 years. And
I believe that.
got the sore shoulders to prove it. But I absolutely love my job. I love delighting my customers. I learned one thing from Warren Buffett. He was asked the question, how do you become rich? And I was all ears when this kid asked him the question. And he says, delight your customers. And that stuck to me from the day I started this business. If you can't delight your customer, then you're not going to be in business very long. And I just love seeing the change on their face when you are done with the project. They're like, holy cow, that turned out amazing, and they're just blown away by it, with the end results and stuff like that. So yeah, that brings me the greatest joy, is seeing the smile and the happiness on people's faces when their project's all done and it looks like brand new again, and they can take it to the next step, whether that's painting or clearing it or, refinishing a pool or whatever the next step is. Just doing a good prep job is foundational for any project.
That is great. Fantastic. We'll head over to DT, like Dan Train, dtdustlessblasting.com. You can hook up with Dan and learn what they're up to and potentially get a quote on your project. Dan, thanks so much for being on the show today and telling the story of the business.
Thank you so much for having me.